Hello E7 fam and welcome. Pat here, back with a video to talk about the October 28th developer notes changes that were just shown by Smelgate and Super Creative this morning. Gonna be kind of honest, not a big fan of this one. A little frustrated honestly with it because they've been on a pretty good track record with the developer notes lately, the balance adjustments. They've been very good the last 2 or 3 times. And right now, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, were really looking for a shakeup, especially in PvP, because, the meta right now is not exactly in a good spot. If the Epic 7 Stats website is to be believed, I believe Angel of Light Angelica is pre-banned in 60% of matches amongst players, which should give you an indication that the unit's really not in a healthy state, and we were really looking for a bunch of answers to it, or maybe potential nerfs or things like that. And then we were looking for characters that can deal with the current format, because right now Rem, Violet, and Bellion are just an RNG fest when it comes to playing against them. So anything that would help alleviate that, a couple units to help alleviate that instead of just one in particular, would have been nice to see. So let's get on to it, but those are just my general overview of what I think of the patch on the whole. So if you haven't seen it, here are the characters that we're going to be talking about. They buffed Mediator Kawerik, Edda, Yufine, Blade Karin, and Zealot Carmainerose, and the artifacts that they changed were Black Hand of the Goddess, as well as Shepherds of Chaos. So first, we will talk about the character that will probably no longer the artist formerly known as Mediator Kawerik. So they've changed it so that the S1 now gives 15% combat readiness to himself in addition to his allies, which is a good change. His S1 was kind of not super great. It was like a bad version of DNs. Now it's basically DNs with upside. So obviously that's a good change there. S2, Balance of Power, was his attack that would give attack down previously, as well as a barrier to your entire team. Now it dispels all buffs, as well as giving that attack down, which makes it really good against certain squishy DPSs that do not really play effect resistance. You can use it to get rid of things like the speed buff off of Landy and what have you. So it's a welcome change. You're not really going to put any effectiveness on him for this move. I feel like it's just to get those DPS that don't really play effect resistance in the first place. So he kind of just has added utility there as a support warrior. So this is a welcome change. More importantly than that, he did get a damage increase on the S2, and the barrier strength is increased. The barrier wasn't really up to snuff, I feel like, compared to some of the other ones. I do not own Mediator. It's hard to break the meme. I do not own Mediator Kawerik, so I don't actually know offhand how strong specifically his barriers were, but from watching friends play him and playing against him, the barrier really wasn't all that. So I'm glad that he got a barrier strength upgrade. That's really nice. And the biggest change for sure is his S3 Nature Restoration. Now gives him 50% combat readiness when he uses it. And if the skill is available at the start of the turn, it decreases debuff duration on him by 1 turn. So that's absolutely massive, because that means this character can actually hard counter Angel of Light Angelica. They will come in, they will unbuffable and silence your whole team. The silence only lasts for 1 turn. Kawerik will start his turn, he will cleanse the silence and then lower the unbuffable by 1 turn, and then he will use Nature Restoration and basically cleanse your entire team, give them an attack buff, and give them immunity for 2 turns. So we technically have a really good answer now to Angel of Light Angelica and Mediator Kawerik. The problem is that it's an ML5. He's not really going to get a rerun anytime soon, and everybody kind of just skipped him, so yikes. Yeah, he's very good now. He's a lot better because, again, he is a hard counter to the most oppressive unit in the game. So, of course, he's going to be great now. Like, he's probably the most likely person to walk out of this patch seeing play after this. I definitely think he'll see play, especially as a counter to Angelica for that reason. He's just good in general. You can't really stun him. You can't really provoke him. You can't really sleep him, because as long as Nature Restoration's up, he will just cleanse those at the start. And I could see people just kind of riding that out for a little bit, using Balance of Power, his S2, and a couple other skills to kind of keep that pseudo passive up longer. It is really, really nice, honestly. Really good changes. Very happy for where this character ended up landing. And I think he is, one of the characters that a lot of you guys, a a lot of everyone in the community was asking for a buff, and I think they really did do him justice. I really hope I don't see any more memes, because this is a really great set of buffs for him. Next up is Edda, who was probably one of my favorite characters from episode 3. I think she's probably the best well-written or the most well-written character. I'm tongue-tied today, sorry. Most well-written character in episode 3. So they changed it so the S1 now is a 75% decreased defense for 1 turn instead of unhealable for 1 turn. Great change, because unhealable's super not that impactful, and it was only 1 turn to begin with, so what are we really doing with that S1? The decreased defense obviously is a much better place to be. They have changed Cold Snap. It no longer requires a critical hit to get the combat readiness component. They have basically removed the critical hit component entirely from Edda's kit, so she no longer is really reliant on critical hits. That is a little bit strange, by the way, because of something I'll talk about when we're done here. Now, instead of dispelling 1 buff, it dispels 2 buffs, which is a welcome change, because now you can use her into Fallen Cecilia and get rid of both the immunity and the barrier and not feel super terrible about it. And then the combat readiness, rather than being the 5 to 20% at random, it is now 15 to 40%, which is more in line with Bellion. Also, it now grants her a skill nullifier 1 time. I guess this is because in the current meta we're in, if you were to use Cold Snap without getting the skill nullifier, the odds of you getting hit by Rem, Violet, or Bellion are incredibly high. So that's where we're at right now. Apparently, AoE skills need a skill nullifier just to be able to function. The Soul Burn was also changed. It now gives an extra turn, and if you watched any of my videos, you know that extra turns are usually pretty overpowered for the most part on Soul Burns. Edda is not quite as broken with it as a character like Landy or Spectre, because those characters do enough damage where they can just win the game off of it. This is more, I feel like, to shore up the overall kit, because now you start while holding Book. If you have 20 souls, you can Soul Burn, strip 2 buffs from the enemy team, and then take an extra turn, which leads you right into Absolute Zero, which is her S3, and that also was changed. Originally, it used to do a 5% CR push to your whole team for each critical hit that it made on the enemy team, as well as having an 85% chance to stun. It still has the 85% chance to stun all enemies for 1 turn, but it also increases the combat readiness of all allies by 20%. So you basically just always get the max. You don't need the critical hit chance anymore. The most baffling change, though, by far on this character is this line. And I'm wondering if this is like a typo or something, but it apparently in the description it's not. When an ally uses a non-attack skill, and this skill is available, increase the combat readiness of the caster by 20%. So I'm not a cleaver control player, so I struggle to really visualize or think of where is this useful, because the fastest non-attack skills that you usually see play are like Challenger Dominiel, Maid Chloe, Amelia, and then I guess Ron now. So I don't really see how Maid boosting you up really does a lot, because there are plenty of characters that are going ahead of Maid. Amelia, you would just rather push a damage dealer. When you're using a non-attack skill, you're going to be pushing your damage up anyway. And if you were going to use a somebody that could dispel buffs, you'd want them to go before whoever you boosted with Amelia. So that just feels like a non-bow. Yeah, this is just a really puzzling change overall. I really don't understand what this is about. If you guys have figured out like what the purpose of this is, or like a good way to actually use this, let me know down in the comments below, because this is probably the most baffling change I think in the entire patch to me, is this line right here. It just doesn't really feel like it does anything for the character, and as a whole I think Edda is in a better spot. I just don't think that she's as good of an opener as some of the other options, so I don't really know if she will see play. Again, this line super baffling. Other thing that's baffling is Twilight Calamity, which is her artifact, was not changed as well. They took the critical hit chance out of her kit, but left it in the artifact for some reason. So I don't think any of you are going to be playing Twilight Calamity for the 30% effectiveness increase, right, on Edda. Like, usually the character's artifact is meant to synergize with the character, and right now it doesn't really do a whole lot. So yeah, this is baffling that we changed a character but did not change their artifact in the same patch to actually go with the like pseudo rework that this character got. Next up is Yufine, who is an incredibly popular character and one of my personal favorites. She's also probably the most overbuffed character in the game's history. She's been getting like 2 buffs a year on average at this point. And she hasn't really seen a ton of play, and I'm just really baffled by this line of buffs as well. So they've changed it so that now when you use her S3 Dragon Charge, it gives her an effectiveness buff for 2 turns after she uses it, and they lowered the cooldown of Dragon Charge by 1 turn, which I guess is nice, but this isn't what's stopping Yufine from seeing play. They also changed the Soul Burn, by the way. It gives an extra turn duration on this new effectiveness buff that it gets. Otherwise, it's functionally the same. They've been doing this for a while now, so that if a extra turn skill is on a character that has buffs, they make sure that those buffs last an extra turn to compensate. That's kind of like a new design change that they've been doing. But yeah, like, was anyone asking for an effectiveness increase buff on Dragon Charge? Because I don't really think that does anything. Now let's look at it from both sides of the coin here. I like to play a lot of PvP. If you're not a PvP player, that's fine. Yufine sees no play right now in PvP because of the things that I always say in a lot of my videos. What determines if a damage dealer is good or not is if they have innate survivability or they do something that is really overpowered. Now, Dragon Charge is a pretty good move. It's on borderline OP, but it's not really enough. Because the thing is, it's attached to a character that isn't going to do a ton of damage unless she is built somewhat slow. Like, to get her to deal huge damage on Dragon Charge, you're going to be susceptible to dying before you even get a turn. Unless you're playing something like Ogslots or Flan, but that opens you up to a whole nother can of worms. That's the reason why Judge Kisei is not played, because Judge Kisei cannot be both fast and deal good damage. And Yufine has that same issue. She just doesn't have any way to survive, and she can't deal damage if she's fast. And if she's slow, she can't survive long enough to deal the damage. So it doesn't help you there. So then the next best use for her as a PvE character is in Hunt one-shots. She's a really good character in Hunts for overall. She's great in Banshee. She's great in Asthmatic. She's amazing there. The problem is the burden of gear is incredibly high for new and intermediate players to use Yufine there. And if you are a veteran player, somebody who's been playing for a while, you probably already have a collab hero such as Baiken or Ram. And those characters do the same job with less gear requirements. So Yufine is a really good character to do hunts with for new players, but new players don't have the gear to use Yufine in the hunts. You see why this is a problem? A much better buff for Yufine would have been that she does double damage to elite and boss monsters on Dragon Charge, because then you could be like, oh crap, this is an amazing character for Banshee. I couldn't clear Banshee 13 previously. Thank you for the Yufine buffs. Instead, we got an increased effectiveness buff that does nothing. Yes, I know, I sound frustrated here, but Yufine is a character I really like, and it just feels like they don't know what to do with her. Like, just give her some form of survivability, or rework the character entirely, or give her a damage boost to hunts. That's literally the only things you can do to the character at this point to help her. Moving on, we have Blade Karin, which I'm always happy to get Karin love because she is arguably the character that got me to play Epic 7 in the first place, so she has a special place in my heart. I love her so much. She was already on the edge of playability for PvP. I think these changes will make her see quite a bit more play. Sequential Cutter for Blade Karin. There's like 4 moves named Sequential Cutter for some reason in this game. It used to give 50% combat readiness when she kills an enemy. Now it gives 15% whenever she uses the move, and then you get the extra 35% for the total of 50 if she actually kills an enemy. Awesome, because right now, the way that most people play her is on counter set, and having a 15% CR boost whenever you get a counter is in line with another couple of counter characters that increase combat readiness. Not as good as Landy, but it's pretty much on par with everybody else. Not everybody can be Landy. The big change I think that she got here was the Cursed Sword change. It is her passive that used to just give her extra attack, defense, and speed. It now also gives immortality at the start of the game, which is really nice. If your opponent is obviously not playing any characters that have dispels or strips, this is really insane, because I think the reason they couldn't have made it at when she was at 1 HP is it would make this character way too strong because Blade Dragon is ridiculous when she has next to no health. So I think they just wanted to kind of avoid that. They kind of wanted to go only a half measure. They wanted to give you the survivability that the character needed to be able to get off Blade Dragon, but they didn't really want to go like full send and be like, hey, we're going to make sure that she always goes to 1 HP so you always get max damage. This is kind of like the middle ground, the compromise. The really, really nuts change, honestly. If your opponent just is not expecting a late pick BBK, they can get absolutely dunked by this character. So that is an amazing change, in my opinion. And then they have changed Blade Art Dragon to now give an increase of attack for 2 turns. It looks like this is after the damage is dealt based on the wording. I'm hoping that's not the case, but that seems to be the case, which is kind of rough because most people play her on Moonlight Dreamblade, so she already had an attack buff. But I guess now that she gives herself an attack buff on her S3, Shepherd of the Hollow is a significantly better option, which is rough because right now there are 2 other highly playable units that are also vying for Shepherd in Remnant Violet and Closer Charles. So another one kind of means you kind of need another Shepherd potentially. But yeah, good change. But the bigger change of the 2 that this move got is that the skill can no longer trigger a counterattack, which is like, yeah, it's like an oasis in the middle of a desert for anybody who doesn't just have every Moonlight 5-star. This is really welcome. You guys already know how the reason why Landy is so insane is because you can't counter her. Spectre is good because you can't counter her. With the immortality and the general damage that BBK does at low health, Blade Dragon just does a ton of damage now, and you can't really counter her as a result, which is super awesome. So I think with the cannot be countered clause plus the immortality, you will see Blade Karin a bit more. How much more, I'm not sure. I know I will be gearing her and I will be trying to play her because I think that she was already in a solid spot to begin with. And obviously buffs means you can only really go up from there. So I'm really happy about this. This buff. It's a very good buff. What's not a very good buff is Zealot Carmainerose. Some of these are just not really it, by the way. I should back up 1 second here. They also changed it. They fixed the bug, by the way, for Blade Art Dragon. So now it applies the health that she loses accurately. Sorry about that. A lot of people, I think, were hoping that when they bug fixed that, we could get a selector for Angel of Light Angelica, but they were like, nope, we're gonna fix the bug at the same time as we buff her. So you just kind of take it. It's a buff now. It's no longer a bug fix. Sorry about that. So now we'll move on to Zealot Carmainerose, who has a number of questionable changes on her. Her S1 now, instead of giving an extra 20% effectiveness when she attacks an Earth hero, she gets 5% combat readiness on her S1, which is basically nothing. 15% is the floor at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Like 5% does nothing, especially on a character that, correct me if I'm wrong, is not particularly fast. So that doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. Then we have changed it so that the Earth Elemental Hero requirement to give Unhealable on your S1 was removed. So now you just have a 60% chance at Unhealable for 1 turn when attacking the target. I don't understand this change because if we scroll up here to Edda, we saw that a 75% chance for Unhealable for 1 turn was unplayable, so we had to change it to decrease defense. So why, oh why, was the change to 60% unhealable on only an Earth hero changed to 60% unhealable on every hero? Like, this does nothing. Like, this is literally, like, most of these buffs are literally that meme where it's like, whoa, this is worthless. That's basically what this entire set of buffs is for this character. And then we have the Wedge Rune, which changed so that instead of giving effectiveness, an increase of effectiveness by 30% when attacking an Earth Elemental hero, you now get an effectiveness buff as long as your health is 50% or more, which this is puzzling because why does it need a conditional modifier? Like, was this really going to be too much? Like, was getting an effectiveness buff for 2 turns on top of an attack buff and defense buff on her S3, was that really gonna break the bank there? I really don't understand why this needed a clause. And then finally now, when you use her S3, you get a 20% combat readiness to not only her, but the ally on your team with the highest attack by 20%. Wow, yeah, like, again, worthless. Like, nothing on here helps the character. The character doesn't get better at the one job that it had. Like, it was supposed to be a decent character for Green Expedition and for Golem. And Soul Bad Guy is better at that. In fact, you can literally play an Azimatic team with no red units for Golem, and it's just better. And for the Earth Expedition, bomb model Kana's free, and she's just better at it. So I don't get it. Like, what was the point of any of this? I'm not gonna dwell on it too much more. I don't want to like make the runtime of the video any more longer than it is. Let's move on to talking about the artifacts. Next up is Black Hand of the Goddess, which made it so that instead of decreasing the crit hit chance and crit hit damage that it gave by 2.4% down to 12% over time, it now decreases by 1.2% at the end of every turn down to 18%. This doesn't really do anything. Black Hand of the Goddess was already decent because it gave 24% critical hit damage and some crit hit chance, but it doesn't really have the oomph. If you wanted damage, you would have chosen Symbol, you would have chosen Portrait, and it doesn't make a compelling case on mages to take it over Book. So this buff doesn't really help because we know that the artifact has a drawback. We know that if the game goes long, we have a drawback on the artifact. Why are you making the drawback worse? Give me more upside. Give me more reason to want to go for this high risk, high reward artifact. I don't get anything out of this. This is not a buff that helps at all. It doesn't improve the playability at all of Black Hand of the Goddess. So I don't understand why this was the pick and why this was the buff. We really could have done Twilight Calamity, just reworked this artifact entirely to go with a reworked character. And then the last change here was to Shepherds of Chaos, which is a 4-star artifact for thieves that you can get from Hall of Trials if you do not already have it. And they made it so that it increases the defense of the holder by 10%. I'm sorry, what was the point of this? This is a thief artifact. Thieves have, on average, 500 defense. Probably less if it's like a Scorpio. Would anyone here elect to play an artifact for 50 flat defense? No. You could have made this 200 flat defense. You could have made it 40% increased defense. And it probably, maybe not 40, because then you'd have an 80% increase here, but like to defense. But I don't see it. I really just don't think that this is a good change. Maybe because it gives 50% defense, unless it's multiplicative, in which case it's like, what, 44? Maybe getting it, but the thing is, like, thieves are not characters that are known for defense. You need, like, over 100% in order to actually make it worth it. You just take a look at a character like Closer Charles or like Specimen Says or Celine, and those characters can wear a defense percentage ring, and it doesn't do anything. Like, they get 65% defense from a ring. They still fold like paper. This buff does literally nothing. And overall, like I said at the start of the video, overall I'm really underwhelmed by most of these buffs. Like Kawerik, Karin, those buffs are really good. Jury's out on Edda. Everything else, throw it in the garbage. If you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments below. I will try to get the how to play Kisei video out sometime either tomorrow or on Sunday. I have quite a lot of things going on today and tomorrow, so I will try my best to get it out. Promise me, I trust me, it is coming. I will try to make it up to you guys, because I know I haven't been doing as much content given the circumstances lately, but I really want to try to do a couple more how to play videos. If I have the time, I'll try hard to get not only the how to play Kisei video done, but I really want to also do a how to play powered up Mercedes video sometime in the near future. So that's going to be it for me. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. It's a conversation. Let me know again what I missed. I'll catch you all in the next one. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend if you don't hear from me, and I'll see you all later.